Throughout the centuries, we have become familiar with the greatest detectives ever known. Sherlock Holmes, Nancy Drew, Columbo. Now I bring you Pavarotti.
Can see through you, see your true colors.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And you know, over the last week or so, I've been focusing in on all the released court docs, trying to bring you all that information that I can about the case and hopefully making the released information have an impact. However, I never stop investigating this case and using every tool at my disposal, from released police reports, released videos, body cams, videos of vehicles moving, unsealed court documents, unsealed reports, cross-referencing everything and trying to keep a clear mind and just let the evidence speak to me in each situation, and try not to be biased on the evidence that I'm looking at, and let the evidence actually tell me what the truth is. Because in a case like this, where everything is so convoluted and mixed up, determining the truth is the most difficult thing to do, even on fine details. So I use everything at my disposal to try to get to the truth. And in this video, I want to tell you what the evidence is telling me about some very key areas of this case. I'll go through and show you my findings, give you the receipts to back it up. And I think the results that are going to come from what I'm going to disclose to you in this video may be quite shocking. So you may want to prepare yourself, because we're going to pick some fly shit out of black pepper in this one and try to put the jigsaw puzzle with many missing pieces together in a cohesive manner until we see that big picture that actually forms at the end. Hold on to your hats, folks. It's going to be a bumpy ride. In my video yesterday, we proved that the state acknowledges that's not Bryan Kohberger's car caught on camera leaving WSU at 2:44 or 2:53. And they identified that vehicle as a 2014 to 2016 white Hyundai Elantra. Since that's not Kohberger's car, yet the FBI is the foremost authority on vehicle identification, I have to assume that they were correct on the identification of that car. The vehicle that we see making all of the initial passes through Indian Hills into the King Road neighborhood the first time is undoubtedly that car that was seen at Floyd Cannabis Shop at 302, a 2014 to 2016 white Hyundai Elantra, not Bryan Kohberger's. However, based on the unclassified FBI report of movements of suspect vehicle, we learned that that vehicle that was just seen on camera at Paradise Drive did something completely different than all the other vehicles caught on camera from that point forward. And what it did put it in a direction where they could never identify that vehicle again. See, that vehicle turned south on Ridge Road and then headed westbound onto Paradise Drive, unlike any vehicle after that. Where did that vehicle go? We may never know. But what the evidence shows is that vehicle was heading south on Ridge Road, and as it reached Paradise Drive, it headed west past the cameras you just seen, and then out of the view of cameras and the ability for the FBI to identify it after that. That vehicle could have very easily headed south, then west, just around the street to a residence right over here on Shetland Court, and then stayed there until 4:04 a.m. And we all know whose residence that belongs to. And the fact that we have all talked so much about Emma and Dee, and yet they do not show up in any of the Moscow or Idaho State Police reports is more than a little suspicious, don't you think? Then I believe the evidence shows that a silver car comes up from the south, turns onto Ridge Road, and heads towards the King Road neighborhood. And we see that vehicle pulling through the King Road neighborhood, and their lights on the trees about right here just a few minutes later. And you can see the lights right there behind the houses of Rosie and Tisdale, because that's where their saga starts, right here. And then we're going to see them pull through this neighborhood. However, in a minute, I'm going to show you what's likely been done in this situation and how easy it would have been for them to do it. As we see them come through the neighborhood here, it appears to be the exact same car as the first pass. However, we know that's impossible based on the police reports. And as it leaves, it seems to look almost exactly like the first vehicle that we had seen make the first pass. But we know it can't be because of their police report. And as they pull out of the King Road neighborhood, the speed in which they turn onto Walenta and then slowly drive down Walenta, I think is interesting as well. And I'll show you how interesting here in just a second. But you'll see their headlights behind those houses any second now. Here they come, and there they go. Let's compare that to the first vehicle driving out and check their speeds. There they go, side by side. Let's slow it down. It's strange. They're almost going exactly the same speed. To help you understand why I've come to this conclusion, I go back to the police report written by Jacob Tisdale on November 15th, discussing what his movements that night were with Rosendahl. And this report is too detailed and honest to ignore. On November 12th at about 11 o'clock, I began an overtime shift for plainclothes detail on the University of Idaho campus and related areas. During this patrol, I and the other officer with me, Officer Rosendahl, only had our body-worn cameras. We were operating out of the Moscow PD Ford Fusion, which I drove throughout the entire detail. So he drove it throughout the entire detail. But this detail is too much detail to ignore. During this detail, Officer Rosendahl and I made several patrols. I originally took that as 3, but several is likely 2 in this case, through the area of King Street and Queen Road. During each patrol of the area, we traveled on the north side of 500 Queen Road, heading east. We wrapped around the building heading south on the east side, then west on the south side of the complex. We then traveled north on the west side, turned west onto Queen Road, and proceeded to King Street. During one of those patrols in this area, while approaching the southwest corner of 500 Queen Road, I recall seeing a darker colored vehicle with tail lights on. The vehicle was parked facing south on the south side of the parking lot towards the west end. There was a short section of the parking lot which extended to the west of 500 Queen Road, south of 1122 King Street, which was where the vehicle was. Now, we know the only vehicle in the area that at that time, because we've watched all the videos now, that could have been parked where Officer Tisdale is describing behind the King Road residence in the little parking area that goes between the apartments and comes back, and he says they were facing south, which is this way. So when Molly pulled in, she pulled up back here and parked right here, facing south. She's the only vehicle at that time in that area that would have had her tail lights on. He's absolutely describing seeing Molly parked there. But here's where it gets very, very interesting. It's this last statement right here that finally gave me the key to this puzzle. Each time we patrolled this area, I drove the same route. That means each time they patrolled the area, he drove the same route. Now, as I just showed you, the first vehicle that comes up Indian Hills onto Steiner, over past Linda Lane, into the King Road neighborhood, just like they're describing here around the Queen Road apartments, back to Queen Road, back to King, and then it left out, drove down to Paradise, and then headed west, where it was not seen anymore. Well, what Tisdale just said right here is he drove the same route every single time. That means when he got to Paradise right here on the next 2 passes, he circles around and comes back up. He never heads west. So that was not Tisdale and Rosendahl making the first pass. That was the 2014-16 white Hyundai Elantra making the first pass. Tisdale and Rosie came in and made the next 2. And I'm going to show you how they were able to hide this from you. But again, to clearly understand what I'm saying, here's the first pass of the vehicle that we seen on all those cameras coming in. He heads west and you don't see him anymore. Now here's camera 1 on Paradise, showing him heading west. That's camera 2, showing him heading west, the first pass. The second pass, he doesn't do that. He comes down and makes a U-turn and goes back up. And just like Tisdale said, on the third pass, he drove the same route every time, makes a U-turn, goes back up, unlike that first car. And here's the video proof, because as you can see, this vehicle comes down, and you can't actually see that vehicle, but it makes a U-turn at 343. And then just like Tisdale said, at 348, he drove the same route every time. You see a car, make a U-turn, and head back up, just like the report says. Let me show you something that's not natural. This is the 330, 338, and the 356 cars all coming in. Did you notice that? Let's watch again. Pay close attention. I've got them synced up almost perfect. Watch this. When you just compare the 338 and the 356 car, you'll see they come in and go out at the exact same time. Not natural. But what's even more telling is when you watch the vehicles leave, they took less time manipulating the video. All three are almost exactly down to the fraction of a second the same. Watch one more time. These were as close as I could get them to perfectly synced up, and you'll see there's no three different passes a car could make where they go the exact same speed. Now you might say, but Pavarotti, it is too difficult to manipulate that video. And I would say, no, that would probably be the easiest one they could manipulate in this entire case. Because you can see in this police report by Andrew Fox on July 5th, 2023, that on June 15th, 2023, he was provided the entirety of the 1112 King Road surveillance videos. This includes 1,464 5-minute videos that range from 0055 hours on 11/13 to 1722 hours on 11/17. Using Axon Investigate version 3.1 software, I was able to stitch the videos together to multiple hour clips. As a result, I was able to compile the videos down to 17. The videos were placed on a portable hard drive and entered into evidence. So it wasn't until July 5th, 2023 that they actually were able to stitch the videos together in their entirety. So what we see on the video from 3:30 to 4:30 that has now been released to the public, that is 1 hour. That's 60 minutes. That's 12 separate 5-minute videos that have been stitched together to create the entire hour. So how easy would it be to take the video of the car that passes at, say, 3:30 and just take the whole 5-minute clip? We don't know when the 5 minutes starts and ends, but then just take that clip and copy it and stitch it in at 3:38 and 3:56. And all they have to do is adjust the speed of the video just fractions of a second to give it a little bit of variance. But when the vehicle drives out, they didn't spend much time adjusting any variance in that video. I think that's how they did the trickery involving hiding the police car that was definitely pulling through that neighborhood at 3:38 and 3:56, according to their police report. So when you're looking at this undercover cop car, copy and paste, we do know that when it pulls out of the neighborhood, the Banfield stop ensues thereafter. Then we have the next turtle, which is this vehicle that comes down on Ridge at 4:01 and then continues on to Ridge that the FBI identified as an 11-13 and is why they looked for an 11-13 throughout the entire investigation. Now, what you just seen there was a vehicle coming down where it was caught on camera here on the first Ridge camera, then it turned on to Ridge and was caught on camera on the second video, and then it disappears from video about right here. Now, what the state was going to allege is the vehicle kept going, came down around here, and headed back up Ridge to Walenta back into the neighborhood. But if that happened, it would have been caught on the camera right here at Ridge, just like these other two. So as we seen earlier, whenever this vehicle hits right here on Ridge, like it's making a U-turn, I mean, you would clearly see it if that car came around that corner. You see the top of that truck right there. You can see when the headlights go around that corner once he turns around. Watch the top of the cab of this truck. When he turns around and drives up, you see those headlights. If a car came around there, you would absolutely see them.
The next issue is the year of the car. Law enforcement works with the FBI to determine the year of the car, and the FBI provides some possibilities after numerous submissions to them, and the court knows this and can read about this. This is going to be in, I believe, D10. That's in D9. And finally, after several submissions, that's when the FBI IML says I can make a car identification. The issue with that that's not disclosed to the magistrate is that car appears one time on one video and not any of the others that they try to say are the path. It's not, let me see if I can say this right. It's not following a consistent trail where the one camera that can identify the car where it appears again. It appears one time, and then what law enforcement did was they took several videos from all over the area and said, well, it's the same car and we have an identification. That's not all. The identification was most comfortably from that FBI agent to be a 2011 to 2013 Elantra. Let me see if I can say this right. It's not following a consistent trail where the one camera that can identify the car where it appears again.
Now, as you heard Ann Taylor in court try to explain, which I feel like was a very complicated thing to explain, and she did the best that she could, but in the end, you know, she explained it about as clear as mud. And we had to go on to investigate further to try to understand what she was saying. And what she was saying was that car was not making a consistent path around, meaning there was no video proof at Paradise that the car continued on around back to the King Road neighborhood. And we learned that from the FBI's movements of suspect vehicle because there wasn't any Paradise cameras listed after 401 where there most certainly should have been if that car made the path back around. And that has always been our hypothesis. And our hypothesis has not been confirmed until now. Because once again, with the state's submission of all of their trial exhibits, it's not what's on there that's what's important, it's what's not on there. And when you look at Paradise, they list the Paradise on the first two turnarounds that we know it was Rosie and Tisdale making, but the footage that should show at 401, the vehicle making the consistent path around back to the neighborhood, is nowhere on their exhibit list, which means that car never went past that camera on Paradise after you seen it on Ridge. That car likely parked somewhere on Ridge and was not the car that came back into the neighborhood. So that leaves us with the car that did come back in the neighborhood, which based on everything that I've explained in this video, is most likely the 2014 to 16 that we started out with in the beginning, that likely, in my opinion, went over to Emma Bailey and Demetrius's house a little after 3:30, where it had sat until 4:04. And then it pulled out, came right up where you would expect it to and into the King Road neighborhood. And that would have been the last vehicle that you see pull out at 4:20. So, Pav, are you really expecting us to believe that not only was there three different vehicles, one of those being the undercover cop car, but that there was two different white Hyundai Elantras, a 2013 and a 2014 to 16 that night? How can you expect us to believe that those cars are all driving around in that area at the same time?
Had a white Hyundai Elantra, which, one of the reasons it wasn't submitted, other than just being outside the year range, is there's a lot of those around. It's interesting when you start looking for a certain make, model, and color of a car, how many there are. There were lots of people out there driving white Hyundai Elantras. There's a lot of those around. It's interesting when you start looking for a certain make, model, and color of a car, how many there are.
Now, let me see if I can wrap this in a bow for you. Now, that's not just me, putting together a video based on how I'm thinking today. This video was a culmination of years now of research into every aspect of this case and taking the relevant evidence that's available. And we have a lot now with the release videos and everything that I've discussed. And when you take each individual aspect and you break it down based on the evidence that is available, and we're at like 95% of the evidence that's available. On everything I've covered in this video, the only thing that we have left to triple verify is seeing the Paradise Drive video after 4 o'clock to say 4:02, 4:03, to see the Floyd Cannabis Shop video, to see the WSU video. Other than that, we have everything else that has come out that we need. And that puts us at like 98% on all of the evidence that we need to be able to give a thorough explanation of what the evidence shows. And in the video yesterday, I went into great detail how the evidence showed that the vehicle at Floyd Cannabis Shop in WSU was not Bryan Kohberger's car, but it is likely the vehicle that was seen making all those passes in the King Road neighborhood. Now, there is one caveat to that. That's if you can connect the vehicle at Floyd Cannabis Shop to the vehicle that you see on Indian Hills. So if that vehicle cannot be connected from Floyd Cannabis Shop to Indian Hills properly, well, then that would suggest that the vehicle that drove through the neighborhood all those passes was actually that 2013 Hyundai Elantra, which was seen on Ridge Road and then never came back out. And then a completely different vehicle came into the neighborhood. So when I say 98%, I'm at 98% based on the evidence that we have available to us right now. What I just presented to you in this video is, I believe, as close to the truth as you can possibly get. It was a 2014 to 16 coming through on the first pass. The next two passes was Rosie and Tisdale, followed up by the last pass, which was the vehicle that I believe was over at Emma Bailey and Demetrius's house. Everything points to that being the case. And I'll point out one last thing just to validate everything that I'm saying here, especially as it relates to Rosie and Tisdale. Because I mentioned when the state's witness list came out that the state included a lot of officers. They did not include Rosendahl or Tisdale in their state witness list. And I said, isn't that interesting? They don't put Rosie or Tisdale on their witness list, even though we know that Tisdale at the very least had direct contact with the crime scene, and Rosendahl did as well, because Tisdale was involved in the police reports where Brett Payne found the glove outside the residence, and Rosendahl was given access to guard the house the night of the atrocity, the day of the atrocity, the next night. They turned it over to Rosendahl to guard the house all night by himself. They both had direct access to the crime scene, so they should have been on the state's witness list, yet they weren't. But that's okay, because now we've got the defense witness list. And guess who are listed on that defense witness list that wasn't listed on the state's? You got it. Rosendahl and Tisdale. The defense was going to hammer them hard. They probably knew what we know at this point. Maybe they had an idea, though, and didn't know all the way. Well, now they do. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Till next time, Pavarotti is out.
Fly